Hello and welcome to today's Lunch and Learn. My name is Kate. I'm the dietetic intern here at Three Crowns, and our subject for today is keeping spirits up after the holidays. I don't know about you, but January rolls around and I get hit hard with the blues. The days are short, they're cold and gray. The holidays are over, the decorations have come down, friends and family have often gone home. It can definitely be a time of isolation, loneliness, and sadness. It's an especially difficult time for people who are already wrestling with mental health challenges. If this sounds like you, I want you to know right now that you're not alone. As I said before, I struggle with this a lot. In fact, 20% of adults older than 55 have some mental health struggles, and that's just the reported data. Mental health is still a stigma in our culture, but the World Health Organization defines health as a state of complete physical, mental, and social well being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. So it's important to know that the way we treat infectious and chronic disease should also be applied to mental health. Of the 20% of these adults that struggle with mental health, there are different variations, including anxiety or severe cognitive impairment or mood disorders such as depression. In fact, depression is the single most common mood disorder among this population. It's incredibly important to treat these issues. Depression can cause adverse effects such as distress and suffering. It can lead to impairments in physical, mental, and social functioning. And the presence of depressive disorders can adversely affect the course and complicate the treatment of other chronic disease that people may be suffering. Of course, there are pharmacological means to address these issues. But today I'm going to talk about other non pharmacological ways we can address beating the blues. And that includes diet, sleep, and mindfulness. So let's start with diet first. Of course, you probably already know right now that getting a healthy diet throughout our lives optimizes both our physical and mental health. That means we need to focus on quality macronutrients, getting complete proteins, getting whole grains when we eat our carbohydrates, and making sure we ingest healthy fats. It's also important to focus on the micronutrients, which are the vitamins and minerals. I'm going to take a look today at 3 particular nutrients that can help us fight off depression. The first is vitamin D. Vitamin D actually facilitates absorption of calcium and phosphorus, and because of this, it actually promotes bone health. In addition, vitamin D is really critical for our immune function, as well as helping cell growth and development. Now, I call vitamin D the sunshine vitamin, and the reason is that most of the vitamin D that we get in our body, we actually synthesize from the sun. There's 2 really important things to note from this. Living in the Midwest, we get less and less sun in those winter months. The sun is farther from the earth, and the rays are actually too weak for us to adequately synthesize vitamin D in our bodies. So from about October to March, the sun is not close enough for us to synthesize vitamin D. In addition to that, as we get older, the enzyme that we need to produce vitamin D in our body decreases. So what do we do about that? Well, we can try to get vitamin D in our diet. 2 food groups that are high in vitamin D are fatty fish and fortified dairy. It's important to note that dairy needs to be fortified for us to get an adequate amount of vitamin D. Vitamin D is not naturally found in dairy, so it needs to be fortified. So you might be thinking, oh, I eat a lot of dairy products. I eat yogurt every day. Unless it's fortified, you're actually not getting that vitamin D. One way to determine whether a food has been fortified with vitamin D is we can take a look at the good old nutrition label. Now, a couple years ago, the US Food and Drug Administration made updates as to what information was required on these labels. You can take a look at this graphic here and see that there's an old label on the left and a new label on the right. The new label has vitamin D as one of the things listed. The FDA looked at the scientific literature and determined that vitamin D was a critical component to our overall health. In addition to that, they were finding that 90% of the population were not meeting the vitamin D requirements. So they decided to include it on the nutrition label in order to empower the population to know how much vitamin D they were getting in a particular food item. Now, there's one thing that I want to note about vitamin D. You might be thinking it's really difficult to get vitamin D from food as it's not found naturally in most things. So you might think going the route of supplementation is the best way. Supplementation can work. However, there's an upper limit of vitamin D and it can be toxic in high amounts. If you decide to go this route, please do so under the guidance of a doctor or registered dietitian. Now let's take a look at vitamin B12. Vitamin B12 helps us make red blood cells. It's required for proper nerve function and it's really important for our overall heart health. I happen to call this the happy vitamin. And you might think, why is it called the happy vitamin? None of the mechanisms actually have anything to do with mood or mood disorders. Well, that's because a lot of studies have shown that people who are deficient in vitamin B12 have higher rates of depressive symptoms. Now, vitamin B12 is much more prevalent in our everyday diet than vitamin D is. There's two really important things to note about vitamin B12. The absorption rates decrease as we age. Vitamin B12 actually needs an additional protein that our body makes in order for it to be absorbed in our body, and that protein decreases as we age. In addition to that, if anyone's taking an antacid or a PPI, they have extra stomach acid and they're taking some sort of pharmacological agent to control that, that will also decrease absorption of vitamin B12. Some foods that are high in vitamin B12 are seafood, poultry, and red meat. Now you might be thinking that vitamin B12 might be hard to get if you're following a plant-based diet. I would never discourage anyone from following a plant-based diet. It is shown to increase our health and decrease our disease risk. So there's several things that you can do in order to get vitamin B12. You can find foods that are fortified in vitamin B12. You can also look at supplementation. Supplementation doesn't carry as many risks as supplementation of vitamin D. However, it is also important to do so under the guidance, again, of a doctor or an RD. The final nutrient I want to look at are omega-3 fatty acids. Maybe you've heard of this if you learn anything about the Mediterranean diet. They're really high in foods on that dietary pattern. Now, I call this the brain nutrient, and one of the big reasons why is that it decreases inflammation and oxidative stress, thus improving our cognitive function. There are 3 different kinds of omega-3s. We call these ALAs, DHAs, and EPAs. It's important to note that there are foods that contain omega-3 fatty acids, but DHA and EPA are generally only found in fatty fish, which are really high in omega-3 fatty acids. Avocados, flax seeds, and nuts also happen to be high in fatty acids, the omega-3 fatty acids, but our body is not able to transform these into DHA and EPA as readily as if we get them from our diet in fatty fish. So hopefully if you've been paying attention, you might have noticed one particular food item that is abundant in all the nutrients that I talked about, and that's fatty fish. So I've included a delicious recipe for salmon called yogurt and spiced roasted salmon. It's full of delicious spices such as harissa and turmeric. It's got a zest of lime juice, and you can actually eat it garnished with tomatoes and onions and yogurt on a tortilla. It makes a delicious lunch or dinner. Fish is such an important part of our dietary pattern. In fact, the dietary guidelines for Americans recommends at least 8 ounces of seafood per week. Next, let's move on to the subject of sleep. Sleep is incredibly important for our mental health, but can be challenging, especially in the shorter days. The sunlight actually helps our body maintain a regular circadian rhythm. And as the days change, that can disrupt this pattern. So you can find yourself having sleep issues. Decreased restorative sleep can also increase our risk of falling. Sleep maintenance, as opposed to sleep initiation, tends to be the biggest problem in older adults, meaning that people can fall asleep rather easily, but staying asleep and again getting that restorative sleep that will decrease our fall risk is really important. Now, there are several ways that we can try to treat insomnia or sleep issues. Of course, there's medication that can be used under the guidance of a healthcare professional, but there's also some non pharmacological interventions that I want to go over with you today. The first one is to improve our sleep hygiene. So, what does that mean? There's several things we can do. We can avoid daytime napping, as well as maintaining a regular sleep schedule. In addition to that, during the day, we want to limit our caffeine intake as well as our nicotine and alcohol. If you do exercise, it's a great thing to do to maintain our health, but we want to make sure we do that at least 6 hours before our bedtime. Another thing we can do is stimulus control. And there are several things under this category that we can try to do. For instance, not using our bed for reading, working, or lounging. We should only go to bed when we feel tired. And if you're in bed and you're trying to go to sleep, if after about 15 to 20 minutes you find you're not falling asleep, we can get up, do something else, and try again later. We also want to maintain a consistent wake up time. That will help maintain our circadian rhythm and keep us asleep longer. We can also implement some relaxation techniques. I'm not going to go into too much of that now, as we are going, the next lesson will be our mindfulness, and we'll talk a little bit more about some of these relaxation techniques. Mindfulness might be a term that you've heard a lot these days. I feel like it's become popular in about the last 5 to 10 years, primarily because our culture is one that is filled with stimulation. We have phones that are in our hands all the time. We have advancements in technologies that make us able to connect in ways we weren't before. We have growing demands on us every day. I was actually trying to think of the last time I had a meal in which I wasn't engaging with someone or looking at something or finding something on my phone, and I couldn't think of one. Mindfulness is a way to make the most of each moment, to connect back with ourselves and really take a look at what's going on inside of us. There are several ways we can engage in mindfulness during the day. Meditation, deep breathing, and morning journaling are 3 popular ones. So, what are some of the advantages of mindfulness? Decreasing stress. Stress is so debilitating to our overall mental and physical health. Sometimes we might not even realize that we're stressed until our health has already been impacted. Mindfulness can help with memory. There's an indication that certain types of meditation can actually stabilize synapses in the brain by decreasing neurotransmitters, thus improving our memory. Digestion. This is a really important one. Deep breathing, one of the mindfulness exercises, can increase circulation. And of course, we need that blood flow to our GI system in order for our digestion to work properly. Mood management. This is a way in which once we become aware of our emotions, we can address the negative thoughts that we have so we can thus manage our mood, and mindfulness helps us do that. Cognition. There have been several studies that indicate that mindfulness, particularly meditation and this deep breathing, can actually induce physical changes to the brain, increasing gray matter. There's also an indication that meditation regularly over a period of time can actually increase brain volume. All of these things will help decrease depressive symptoms. Perhaps you're thinking, I've never meditated before and I don't know where to start. That's okay, a lot of us haven't. Today, I'm actually going to take you through a beginning meditation. So we're going to start now. So I want you to begin by finding a comfortable position. Close your eyes or focus on one spot in the room. I want you to roll your shoulders slowly forward then slowly back. Lean your head from side to side. First, lower your left ear towards your left shoulder. Then lower your right ear towards your right shoulder. Relax all your muscles. Your body will continue to relax as you meditate. So I want you right now to observe your breathing. Notice how your breath flows in and out. Make no effort to change your breathing in any way. Simply notice how your body breathes. Your body knows how much air it needs. Sit quietly, seeing in your mind's eye your breath flowing gently in and out of your body. When your attention wanders, as it will, just focus back again on your breathing. Notice any stray thoughts, but don't dwell on them. Simply let the thoughts pass. See how your breath continues to flow deeply, calmly. Notice the stages of a complete breath, from the in-breath to the pause that follows, the exhale, and the pause before taking another breath. See the slight breaks between each breath. Feel the air entering through your nose. Picture the breath flowing through the cavities, in your sinuses, and then down to your lungs. As thoughts intrude, allow them to pass and return your attention to your breathing. See the air inside your body after you inhale, filling your body gently. Notice how the space inside your lungs becomes smaller after you exhale and the air leaves your body. Feel your chest and stomach gently rise and fall with each breath. Now, as you inhale, count silently. 1. As you exhale, count 1. Wait for the next breath and count again. 1. Exhale. 1. Inhale. 1. Exhale. 1. Continue to count each inhalation and exhalation as 1. Notice now how your body feels. See how calm and gentle your breathing is and how relaxed your body feels. Now it is time to gently reawaken your body and mind. Keeping your eyes closed, notice the sounds around you. Feel the floor beneath you. Feel your clothes against your body. Wiggle your fingers and toes. Shrug your shoulders. Open your eyes and remain sitting for a few moments longer. Just sit for a few moments, enjoying how relaxed you feel and experiencing your body reawaken and your mind returning to its usual level of alertness. I want to thank you so much for joining me today. It was a pleasure to speak to you, and I hope that you find a lot of joy and light in the coming months.